road was not going to last the night. Nora understood this within the first minute, not from medical knowledge, she had no medical knowledge, but from the particular quality of the woman's breathing, which was the shallow, irregular breathing of someone whose body has made a decision that the person inside it has not yet accepted. She was young, late 20s, dark hair, a face that would have been beautiful under different circumstances and was still striking under these ones. She was lying in the road with a bundle clutched against her chest, and the bundle was moving and making small sounds, and Nora was already out of the carriage before she had consciously decided to be. "Give her to me," Nora said. Not a question. The woman's eyes opened. Dark eyes, the particular focus of someone using everything they have left on a single point. She looked at Nora for a long moment. Then she held out the bundle. Nora took it. A child, an infant, months old, wrapped in a good wool blanket that was the most expensive thing visible in the entire situation. The child looked up at Nora with the complete and uncomplicated attention of someone encountering a new face and finding it acceptable. The woman's hand found Nora's wrist. The grip was surprising, the particular strength of someone using the last available thing they have. "Her name is Lily," the woman said. "Promise me." Nora looked at the child in her arms. She looked at the woman in the road. She understood with complete clarity what was being asked and what it would cost, and that the cost was not the relevant consideration. "I promise," she said. The woman's grip loosened. Her eyes closed. She did not open them again. If the last 60 seconds did something to you that you cannot name, stay, because what Nora Hale does with that promise over 3 years, and what she finds in a box on a winter evening that changes everything, is not simply a story about a child. It is a story about what a promise costs, and what it is worth, and about a man who spent 3 years looking for something that had been kept safe the entire time by a woman he had never met. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Hit the like button. Drop a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. Every single one of those actions reaches back to us. Now, back to Nora. Because she has a child she did not plan for and a promise she intends to keep, and somewhere in England a duke has been looking for 3 years and has found nothing. Yet, Nora Hale had been a schoolteacher in the market town of Aldwick for 4 years, when the road changed everything. She was 24. She lived in 2 rooms above the bakery, on the high street, her bedroom and the sitting room that served as both classroom and everything else, where 6 children came 3 mornings a week and learned their letters and their sums and the particular quality of attention that Nora considered the most important thing she could give them. She was not wealthy. She was not comfortable in the way of people who do not think about money. She was managed the particular, careful management of a woman who knows exactly what she has and has arranged her life to fit it precisely. She had not been planning to acquire a child. She had been returning from her cousin's house, a 2-day journey, the carriage hired, the road through the North County, unavoidable. The winter had been hard that year. The road had been worse than expected. The woman in the road had been the last thing she had expected to find on a Wednesday afternoon in February, with the light failing and the temperature dropping, and 2 more hours of travel ahead of her. The physician had come to the inn by midnight. He had confirmed what Nora already knew. Unknown traveler. No identification. Natural causes accelerated by exposure and exhaustion. He had looked at Nora holding the infant, with the assessing attention of a man trying to determine how much of a problem this was going to be. "The child," he had said, "is mine," Nora had said. Not a lie, a statement of intention delivered in the particular tone of someone who has made a decision and is not interested in discussing it. The physician had looked at her for a moment. Then he had written his report and gone back to his bed. And Nora had sat in the inn-room with Lily in her arms, and the particular quality of someone who has just done something irrevocable and is discovering that irrevocable feels considerably more solid than reversible. She had named her Lily because the dying woman had said so. She had registered her as Lily Hale because she had no other name to give her, and because Hale was sufficient for now, and now was what she had. She had gone home to Aldwick, and she had arranged the sitting room to include a cradle, and she had told the 6 children's parents that her circumstances had changed and that the classes would continue in the afternoons rather than the mornings. And she had gone to work. The first year had been the hardest in the particular way of things that require everything you have and then slightly more. Lily had been a child of strong opinions from the beginning. She knew what she wanted, and communicated this with considerable volume and absolute clarity, and did not accept substitutions. Nora had found this, after the initial weeks of surviving it, genuinely admirable. She had also found, somewhere in the 4th month, that she had stopped thinking of Lily as the child she had promised to keep, and had started thinking of her simply as Lily, her Lily. The distinction had arrived quietly and without announcement, and Nora had noted it and filed it in the particular way of someone who knows something is significant and is not yet ready to examine how significant. By the end of the 1st year, Lily was walking. By the end of the 2nd, she was talking with the particular fluent precision of a child who has been talked to constantly and seriously since birth, and has absorbed both the vocabulary and the quality of attention that produces it. She called Nora her Nora possessive, definitive, entirely accurate. Nora had asked questions in the first months. She had written to 3 county solicitors describing the woman she had found, and received 3 polite and unhelpful responses. She had made inquiries at 2 coaching inns on the road, and found nothing. The woman had been traveling alone, had been seen at one inn the night before, had paid with coin, had given a name that the innkeeper could not subsequently recall with any confidence. Nora had stopped asking questions after 8 months. She had told herself she would ask again when Lily was older. She had told herself this at regular intervals for 2 years, and had not asked again because the asking required confronting what finding would mean, and she had Lily's supper to make, and her letters to mark, and the rent due on Friday. It was a winter evening in Lily's 3rd year, when Nora finally opened the box. She had been keeping it on the high shelf in her bedroom, the small bundle of belongings Catherine had been carrying, transferred from the road to the inn, to Nora's carriage, to the high shelf, in one continuous, careful chain of custody. She had known she should look through it properly. She had been finding reasons not to for 3 years. Lily was asleep. The candle was lit. Nora lifted the box down from the shelf and sat at the small table and opened it. A locket, first oval. Gold. A portrait miniature inside of a man she did not recognize. Dark-haired, grey-eyed, the particular quality of someone who sat for portraits with the composed stillness of a man entirely at ease inside himself. A letter, unfinished, addressed to no one. 3 lines in a careful hand describing a journey and a decision, and then stopping the particular stop of someone who had not known how to continue or had run out of time to try. And at the bottom of the box, folded inside a piece of oilcloth that had kept it dry through 3 years on a high shelf, 2 documents. The first was a marriage certificate. Catherine Voss, married to Thomas Carew, Duke of Ashenmere, dated 4 years prior. The second was a birth certificate. Lily Catherine Carew. Father, Thomas Carew, Duke of Ashenmere. Mother, Catherine Voss Carew. Dated 3 years and 2 months prior. Nora set both documents down on the table. She looked at them for a long time. Then she looked at the door to the room where Lily was sleeping, the particular breathing of a child deeply asleep, the small sounds of it audible through the thin wall. She picked up the documents. She read them again. She set them down. She sat with this for 3 days. She went to Ashenmere Estate on a Tuesday morning, not because the law required it. The law, as best she could determine, was ambiguous about her situation, and not inclined to resolve the ambiguity in her favor. Not because she was afraid of being found, because Lily deserved to know who she was. Because a promise made to a dying woman on a road in winter did not expire when it became inconvenient. Because Nora Hale had been a schoolteacher for 4 years, and had spent 4 years teaching 6 children that the right thing and the easy thing were not the same thing, and she was not going to stop believing this, because it had become personally costly. She asked to see the Duke. She was shown to a waiting room high-ceilinged, cold, the particular atmosphere of a room designed to remind visitors of the distance between themselves and the person they are waiting for. She sat in it with her spine straight and the 2 documents in her bag, and she waited. Thomas Carew entered the waiting room 12 minutes later. He was 32, dark-haired, grey-eyed, the particular quality she recognized from the portrait miniature in the locket rendered in 3 dimensions. He was the kind of quiet that is not performed simply the natural state of someone who has been carrying something for 3 years and has learned to carry it without showing it. He looked at Nora with the assessing attention of a man who is trying to determine what kind of situation he is walking into. She placed the documents on the table between them before he could speak. He looked at them. He did not pick them up immediately. He simply looked at them with the expression of a man who has been searching for something for 3 years and is not yet certain that what he is looking at is real. Then he picked them up. He read them. He set them down. He was very quiet for a long time. Nora told him everything while he was quiet. The road, the February cold, the woman's hand on her wrist, the promise. 3 years of Lily. She told it completely, and without embellishment, and without asking him for anything, because she had decided on the journey that she was here to give him information and the documents, and that anything beyond that was for him to determine. When she finished, he looked at her with the grey eyes from the portrait miniature and the 3 years of careful carrying and the particular expression of a man who has just heard something that has reorganized everything he thought. He knew about the preceding 3 years. She is alive, he said. Not a question. The particular way you state a fact that you have been afraid was not a fact. She is, Nora said. She is at home expecting me back for supper. Something moved in his face. She is well? She is extremely well, Nora said. She has opinions about most things and communicates them clearly and is currently learning to read and considers this the most important project in the world. He was quiet again. Will you bring her? He said. Tomorrow. I would like... He stopped. The particular stop of a man who has several things to say and is trying to determine the correct order. I would like to meet her. Yes, Nora said. But I need you to understand something first. He waited. She is 3 years old, Nora said. She does not know what a duke is. She knows what supper is, and what bedtime is, and who reads to her at night. She knows her letters A through M and is working on N. She knows that the baker's cat is called Humphrey and that Humphrey is not to be trusted. She looked at him steadily. However this proceeds, it proceeds at her pace. Not yours, not mine, hers. He looked at her for a long moment. She held the look with the particular calm of someone who has made their position clear and is waiting to find out whether it will be respected. Yes, he said. Of course. She went home. She made Lily supper. She read to her N through R, Lily's current territory, attacked with characteristic determination. She lay awake for most of the night, thinking about the particular shape of what she had just set in motion, and whether she was going to be able to bear it. She had known since the night she found the documents that this was coming. She had known that the correct outcome for Lily was the one that was hardest for Nora. She had made her peace with this. She had thought she had made her peace with this. Lying awake in the dark, listening to Lily breathe through the thin wall, she discovered that making peace with something in the abstract and maintaining that peace in the concrete were not the same thing. Thomas came on a Thursday. Nora had told Lily only that a visitor was coming, a man who had known her mother and wanted to meet her. Lily had received this information with the characteristic directness of a 3-year-old. Does he like cats? And had been satisfied with the answer that this was not yet known, but could be determined. Thomas arrived precisely on time. He sat in Nora's small sitting room with the contained stillness of a man who is managing something enormous with careful precision and did not reach for Lily or perform warmth at her or do any of the things that adults typically did. When confronted with small children and trying to make an impression, he simply sat and let Lily make her assessment at her own pace. Lily's assessment took 11 minutes. She stood at the far side of the room and looked at him with the systematic attention she brought to all new things. Then she crossed the room and held up the picture book she had been carrying. Do you know this one? She said. No, he said. Will you show me? She climbed into the chair beside him, not his lap, the chair beside him, Lily's own careful social arithmetic, and opened the book and began to explain it to him with the particular authority of someone who has complete mastery of their subject. Nora stood in the doorway and watched and felt something in her chest that she did not permit herself to name. He came twice a week. He was always precisely on time. He never reached for Lily before she reached for him. By the 4th week, Lily was showing him things, the baker's cat through the window, the letters she was learning, the particular rock she had found in the garden that she considered significant. By the 6th week, she was sitting in his lap, while Nora read to her, and looking between the two of them with the expression of a child who is assembling a picture and finding it satisfactory. By the 8th week, she was calling him Thomas. Thomas, she had said, entirely without preamble, on a Thursday evening while he was reading to her because Nora had stepped out to speak to the baker downstairs. He had looked at her. Yes, he had said, in the particular tone of a man receiving something he did not know he had been waiting for and is not going to make a performance of receiving. Good, Lily had said, and returned to the book. Nora had come back upstairs to find them both reading, Lily explaining the plot with considerable authority, Thomas listening with complete attention. She had stood in the doorway for a moment before either of them saw her. She had filed the image carefully in the locked place and gone to make tea. She was going to lose Lily. She had known this since the night of the documents, and she had been preparing for it, and she was prepared. What she had not prepared for was Thomas, the particular quality of his attention, not performed, simply present. The way he was present in every room he entered with the full weight of himself. The conversations that happened over Lily's head during the twice-weekly visits, honest conversations, the kind that emerge between two people who are both paying full attention to the same small person and find themselves, in the peripheral moments, paying full attention to each other. The way he had said, of course, in the waiting room when she had told him it proceeded at Lily's pace, not his. The way he had not once in 8 weeks suggested anything that prioritized his own position over Lily's comfort. She noticed him. She had been noticing him since the waiting room, and had been filing the noticing carefully in the locked place because the timing was wrong and the situation was complicated, and she was not going to be the woman who raised a man's child for 3 years and then fell in love with him. Because that was not the promise she had made on the road in February. She made this argument to herself regularly. It was a good argument. It was becoming less effective. He came on a Tuesday evening in the 10th week. Not a visit day. Tuesdays and Thursdays were the visit days, established in the first week and maintained without exception. A Tuesday evening with no prior arrangement was something different, and Nora understood this before she opened the door. Lily was asleep. The sitting room was quiet, the candle on the table, the letters she had been marking set aside. The particular evening stillness of the 2 rooms above the bakery that had been her entire world for 4 years, and that had contained, for the last 3 of them, considerably more than she had planned. Thomas sat across from her. He did not speak immediately. He was a man who did not speak before he was ready, and she had learned in 10 weeks not to fill his silences. She waited. "I do not want to take her from you," he said. Nora looked at him. Something released in her chest that she had not known was held. "She is your daughter," she said. "Yes," he said. "And you are her Nora. And those 2 things are not in conflict unless we decide to make them conflict." He paused. "I would like to propose an arrangement that does not require anyone to lose anything." She looked at him across the small table, with the candle between them and the letters she had been marking and the sitting room that served as everything. She thought about the road in February and the woman's hand on her wrist and the promise and 3 years of Lily's supper and Lily's bedtime and Lily's letters A through R. She thought about Thomas in the waiting room saying, "Of course," with the complete sincerity of a man who meant it. Thomas sitting precisely on time every Tuesday and Thursday. Thomas listening to Lily explain the significance of the rock from the garden with his full, undivided attention. Thomas saying yes when Lily called him Thomas for the first time with the particular tone of a man receiving something he did not know he had been waiting for. "What kind of arrangement?" she said. He looked at her with the grey eyes and the 3 years of careful carrying and the expression of a man who has examined the available evidence and reached a conclusion he intends to deliver directly. "The kind," he said, "that requires a vicar." They were married in April. Small, deliberate, entirely theirs, the Ashenmere Chapel, 8 people, the vicar who had been at the estate for 20 years, and who conducted the ceremony with the warm brevity of a man who recognizes something real when he is asked to witness it. Lily attended in a new dress. She had selected herself, dark green, because she had decided this was the correct color, and had communicated this decision with the characteristic clarity that Nora had been navigating for 3 years and Thomas had been navigating for 10 weeks, and that both of them had independently concluded was one of Lily's finest qualities. During the vows, Lily sat between them in the front pew and held one of each of their hands with the complete satisfaction of someone who has assembled a picture and found it exactly right. The small house above the bakery was kept. Nora's school continued. 6 children became 8 that year. 8 became 12 the year after, the particular growth of something that has found the space it needed to expand into. Thomas had not asked her to stop. She had not offered to. This had been the first thing they had agreed on without discussing it, and it had set the tone for most of what followed. Catherine's locket was placed on Lily's dressing table at Ashenmere when she was old enough to have a dressing table. Thomas had told her about her mother when she was 5, carefully, completely, in the honest way that Lily had been told everything since she was old enough to be told things. Lily had looked at the portrait miniature in the locket for a long time. Then she had looked at Thomas. Then she had looked at Nora. "She asked you to keep me," she said to Nora. "Not a question." "Yes," Nora said. Lily looked at the locket again. "Good," she said. The same word she had used when she decided to call Thomas by his name. Simple, definitive, entirely Lily. She kept the locket on her dressing table for the rest of her life. Thomas had spent 3 years looking for Catherine and Lily through private inquiries that had found nothing. He had found out, eventually, what Catherine had been running from a situation she had not told him about, a fear she had been managing alone in the particular way of someone who has decided that managing alone is safer than asking for help. He had wished, in the years afterward, that she had asked. He had understood, eventually, why she had not. He had kept the understanding and let go of the wishing because Nora had told him once, on an evening in the small sitting room after Lily was asleep, that carrying the wrong grief costs more than the person carrying it ever recovers. He had found this accurate. Nora had kept her promise. This was the thing she returned to sometimes in the years that followed, not the road, not the cold, not Catherine's hand on her wrist, simply the promise. She had made it in 30 seconds on a February road to a woman she did not know, and she had kept it for 3 years, and then for the rest of her life. It had cost her more than she had known it would cost when she made it. It had given her more than she had known it would give. Some promises are like that. The ones made in 30 seconds on cold roads to strangers. The ones you make before you know the full dimensions of what you are agreeing to. Nora had learned that these were the ones worth keeping. Not because they were easy, because they were the ones that mattered most to the person who asked. Her name is Lily. Promise me. She had promised. She had kept it. Everything else had followed from there. Thank you for staying to the very end. If this story moved something in you, if the image of a woman standing in a road in February and saying, "I promise," stayed with you, then do one thing right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe if you haven't yet. Leave a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. Every single one of you matters to this library. Until next time, the doors are always open.